Welcome back to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. My name is Giacomo.
My name is Sawyer.
Welcome to the show. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in to another episode. You're the reason why we get a chance to do this. I hope everyone's doing well out there. And we have been drumming up all sorts of ideas together, huddling up, thinking about fresh, new ideas and things that you want us to talk about. But as always, please feel free to reach out anytime, hit the contact button, proteins, or reach out to us via socials and just let us know what you want to talk about, whether it's based on the conversations that we're having or based on something you're thinking, and we can keep this conversation going. So, but before we get into it, I want to catch up. I mean, honestly, what do we really need to catch up on? Sorry, I just saw you yesterday. Like,
I
seriously.
know. But I mean, there's always more to talk about. Like, I'm excited. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm very excited to come see you guys in a couple of weeks. That's been on my mind increasingly. One, because I know we're just going to have fun and we're going to have more inside jokes and stuff, but also because I know the food is always going to be really good with you guys. So I'm pumped for that. Maybe we can get a few training sessions in too. That'd be cool. And I get to see Xander. There's so many things I'm excited for being over there. Definitely. How about you? What are you excited for?
Well, I wasn't thinking about that, but now I am. It seems like time has moved so fast this year. Danny and I just realized that we did the math because we were like, how do we plan for 2026 and do what we do, but grow as usual and adapt to doing more? And I was like, oh my gosh, we have traveled for 35% of the year. And then as Danny and I are figuring out the math, we're getting some more requests to travel after. I'm like, that's it. No more travel. This is the last trip. Because we just got back from Atlantic City and we saw Day win the wellness division in the pro wellness division category, which is our first pro division win at Mr. America specifically. So,
that's so cool. Wow.
Yep. But after that, I'm like, no more. Like, please give me a break. I need to recharge the battery. That's coming from me. And I do not turn down the opportunity to train and hang out with people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's trippy to think about. It's already the Mr. America, or that already happened, because I was getting updates on my phone about, the last year we were there. And that was my first, like, I had just joined Vegan Proteins at that point, and it was like, I was just thrown into this whirlwind of like awesomeness, but still a whirlwind, you know what I mean? And it was cool to be there. And it was just a cool way to meet all the athletes and like get to know everybody. And I'm a little bummed I missed it this year, but it's so cool that we got that pro win, and seeing everybody even just on social media being happy to be together was cool.
We had some more Tony Baloney's pizza. I was personally inspired by Day's story. She said something that I had tears welling up in my eyes, and I had to hold them back for a quick second because she was like, I want to prove that I'm not a loser, that I'm a winner. And I'm like, Day, you're placing top 3 in the world in wellness in the pro league. And yet you feel this way. And she's like, you know what that feels like, right? And I looked at her dead in the eyes. And of course I know what that feels like. I've been competing for 20 years. It doesn't matter how good you get. When you can be better, it doesn't matter how high up you're placing. You feel that way if you don't win. It's absolutely inspiring, put it that way. And it made me feel less alone.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was watching an Alex Leonidas video the other day. He was talking about strength standards and how naturals kind of set their standards too low sometimes and kind of black pill everything. And they think, oh, that guy's on steroids, that girl's on steroids, whatever. And they don't really try because of it. And he was like, I'm sick of it. Like you're capable of so much more. And I was like listening to that, and I was like, I totally am. Like there's certain lifts that I have not even really pushed myself on in like years. You know what I mean? So I just got feeling more inspired, honestly, and more like I want to hold myself to a higher standard, because I think for a long time I was thinking that I'm advanced in fitness just simply because of the number attached to how long I've been training for. But if I'm being honest, I think I've been more complacent than anything. And I think I have a more capacity than I give myself credit for, because like I said, there's a whole lot of lifts that I haven't really even really pushed myself on, and lifts that I haven't really experimented with enough, different programming I haven't experimented with enough. So I think if I'm being honest with myself, and I was talking to Ben about this the other day, is like, I think I'm more of an intermediate, like a late stage intermediate maybe, or maybe in certain muscle groups, like an early intermediate, to be honest. So that sounds like defeating after training for like 15 plus years, but it actually is very exciting, because it means that I have a lot more potential than I was thinking I did. And so I'm getting very inspired by that too. So I think, yeah, even though it can be really scary to set unreasonable standards, like, and people can do that, like, it sounds like Day was kind of on the border of that because she's winning or like almost winning shows and like looks amazing and thinking she's quote unquote a loser, which is unfathomable to me. She looks amazing and she's pushed herself to this level, but she's also incredibly motivated to keep going. And that's, admirable, to be that driven. So it's a little bit hard to toe that line.
Well, and imagine the predicament that someone is in when they're ready to hire a coach, and the similar predicament that the coach is in as they problem solve for the client. Because let's face it, when you are ready to hire a coach, sometimes you're frustrated and you're throwing your hands up in the air and you're like, you know what? This isn't something I should do on my own. Let me hire the help of the professional.
Mm-hmm.
But whether it's that's the case, or it's the straight up, I'm pushing really hard, I want to see what it's like to have someone in my corner and I want to take it to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Once you take it there and you cross that line and you hire a coach, you have all these expectations going in and you have a certain goal in mind. And let's just say hypothetically, you are the type that's willing to do everything, you show up, you put in the effort, and you're able to execute. You do it consistently. Let's say like you're the perfect client. You still have to consider what you hoped for and expected and what your reality is as far as the outcome is concerned. And I feel like that is something that evolves over time. And I think it's the perfect way to start our conversation today because we want to get into those periods of time for you, the lifter, the client, the athlete. We want to get into those periods of time where it's uncertain, where you have mixed feelings about what you're doing. And if you're questioning what you're doing, what do you do with all that?
Yeah, that's a big topic. And I think, like I said, I think it's very easy to get complacent in that ambivalence because you can start to think that the things that you've tried so far that have somewhat worked until now are the only tools available to you or the only ones that have worked for you so far. And so they're the only things that are worth investing in, but they kind of can only get you so far. And same thing with your mindset, your perspective on things too. Like I recently hired Ben, who's a good friend of mine and fellow coach, to coach me because I realized, you know what, I'm so limited in one, what I'm comfortable with at this point, but also two, how I see myself and what I feel like I'm capable of. So having him and just having given him the explicit instructions of like, hey, push me, like, hey, try to get me to the point where I didn't feel like it was possible and I don't even know what I needed to work on until you pointed to it. I think I'm trying to be as open as humanly possible right now because even though it is a hit to my ego to be like, hey, guess what? I'm not that good at certain things in fitness, even having done it this long. It's also really freaking exciting to think, wow, I actually have a lot more growth potential. So I think sometimes ambivalence is the result of getting a little bit demotivated because you have been using certain tools and methods that have worked for you to a certain point, but you can't get beyond that. And so you think, well, maybe this is the end of the road. Why would I invest more time and energy in this, but I still want more? So you're kind of feeling like, I don't know if this is a good path for me or what to do. At least that's what it was like for me, So, but once I decided to go with Ben, it was like, I've already been like a fire is lit. Like I was walking in the rain the other day. I was like, who am I? Am I 20 years old again? Like it was cool to feel like that. I went to the gym like late at night. Like, not that I'm trying to make those things like a habit, obviously, but the fact that I was willing to do those things when just, a few months ago, that was like, I'm not going to do that, because it didn't feel like I was capable of as much as I feel like I am right now. So I do think ambivalence sometimes can stem from a feeling of, I don't have much more capacity left or, kind of this natty limit type talk, and I'm just believing it less and less. The more that I really humble myself and realize, there's a lot of areas of fitness I haven't explored, a lot of things I haven't tried. And I might just need somebody to help me get out of my comfort zone a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Totally. I think of clients that come to us and they have either the stars in their eyes or high hopes and expectations, or they don't know exactly what their potential is. And then they put in anywhere from 3 to 12 months worth of work. And they're like, oh crap, this standard that I've been holding myself to, what the fitness industry tells me I should be capable of, or influencer that I am inspired by, or this mythical superhero or whatever that I see and I'm like, you know what? I want to be like that. And then
Mhm.
they put in the 3 to 12 months of work and they see what their outcome is. And it could be deflating, or they could start to question, like, am I capable? Am I
Mhm.
worthy of this goal? Am I going to be satisfied with where I'm landing? And then what I've seen is people get frustrated. They blame themselves. They think they just got to push harder. They think that their goal isn't worth it.
Mm.
They start to doubt themselves. It's very hard to accept reality and still realize that you can do more and be better, right?
Yeah. I think it all has to do with, yeah, what your expectations are. Because I think a lot of people think that they're going to get in the best shape of their lives in a few months, and they underestimate how much muscle they actually need to have the look that they want to have. And when they realize, oh, I'm looking at, several years of consistent training and nutrition and mindset stuff and knowledge. But yeah, depending on how high they're shooting, what their expectations are for how easy it's going to be, I feel like, yeah, they might have a couple of gut punches on the way where they're just kind of like, "Ooh, I didn't know that was going to be that hard." And but I think that's good, because when you have those kind of checks to reality, you have to check in with yourself and say, "Why do I really want this? What am I really doing this for? Am I doing it for me, or am I doing it for the validation of others?" Like, that stuff really starts to come out the longer you do it. And sometimes it transforms. Like when I first started lifting, I don't know about you, but for me, it was just because I was insecure. It was like,
Same,
yeah, right. So that's a
exact
big
same.
reason let a lot of people start, is they just feel like, I'm small, I'm insecure about it, I want to change. And somewhere along the line, man, it became like a love for pursuing, just something that I could build in myself, some kind of resilience and some kind of knowledge and some kind of way that I could show the world who I am and what I believe in. Like veganism came along for the ride at some point, and like it just became somewhere along the way, it became more of who I am. It's just such an identity thing. And that can be tough, because then when you're limited, or you feel like you're a little bit complacent, or you feel like you don't have much capacity left, which is where I was at, it was like a little bit of an identity crisis. I was like, well, do I just maintain this for the rest of my life? And then it really forced me to think, oh, am I at my peak? Like, and I think the truth is, no, I don't think I'm anywhere near it. To be honest, I was just kidding myself, because I wasn't willing to, be a little uncomfortable and humble myself and learn more from other people who had done different things and tried new things that I hadn't done before. Push myself on lifts that I don't really like is a big part of that. So I think, like I said, I think ambivalence can be a way of your body or your mind telling you that you are at a crossroads. And until you figure out what really needs to happen, or what kind of question you need to answer before you can push ahead, you're going to be a little bit stuck. You're going to feel a little bit, at an impasse. And that's okay. Like, you can't just be making like gains and cruising your entire journey and like have it be significant. You have to be held up at some points and be like, the adventure is not really an adventure if there's no like unpredictability or downsides or slowdowns and speed ups. Like, you want it to be kind of unpredictable if it's going to be exciting, if it's going to be meaningful, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like one of the hardest things to do when it comes to fitness, because it's such a strong part of your identity, because you're so used to your routine, because you are in this position where it's like you put in the work, you get results.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to take a step back and assess where you're at before you just
Mm-hmm.
keep pushing harder and harder
Yeah.
and harder.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be difficult too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the advice I would have for people who feel like they've been stuck in this ambivalent phase for way too long, and they keep coming up with hypotheses and scenarios and theories about why it is. I think eventually you just have to stop thinking that way and just pick a direction. Because for me, one that commonly happens is, what body fat percentage do I want to be at? I don't know. There's benefits to, you know what I mean, bulking, there's benefits to cutting. Like, I'm always kind of playing that in my mind. But recently I was like, I'm sick of being hung up on this decision. I'm going to do this cut, even though I don't like the feel of it in some ways. And there's going to be discomforts on the way down and all this stuff. I was like, I'm going to finish this cut. I'm going to see it through. I'm going to check that box. And then I'm going to see how I feel. Already, I'm only like a month and a half into the cut. Already, I'm excited to bulk. And I think that's testament to the fact that I think I have more capacity to grow, right? And I'm like, I think it's all kind of lining up in that way. And it's making me feel like I almost feel like I'm slingshotting right now. Like I'm pulling back the bow because I'm like, I'm getting ready to bulk and do it intelligently and do it methodically and push myself really hard in the gym, especially. But I didn't know that I wanted that until I started the cut. You see what I'm saying? So I had to pick a direction to realize, well, that's not actually what I was excited about. I'm actually excited about this other thing, but I needed to do this to make sure. And I'm still going to go through with the cut. I'm still going to push myself on that. I'm just becoming more and more aware, like, oh, this is what I actually wanted. So I think until you make a decision, you could go back and forth in your head forever and say, oh, maybe this is the better thing. Maybe that's the better thing. You got to make a decision. You got to stick to it. And then once you really, because I think humans, as smart as we are, we have to have an emotional, it has to be an emotional note that gets hit, because otherwise you will just change your mind left and right, because it's like you're just seeking pleasure at that point if you don't really have a real deep reason for doing something. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I absolutely do. It's crazy
Yeah.
because this world is getting more and more AI based and technology based, and everything is
Hmm.
just, well, we can just mimic emotion to help us not get stuck in our feelings and approach everything logically. And to your
Yeah.
point, I don't think that's possible. And I think that's a slippery slope and a dangerous path because it
Yeah.
doesn't really lead you to a place where you're going to be making good decisions for the right reasons, meaning the kinds of reasons that will actually stick. I
Right.
know I can't articulate, I can't put a finger on it, but what I
Hmm.
can tell you is that when that emotional reasoning starts to cycle through my process, when I start to feel it and I'm like, oh, I'm doing this for an emotional reason, I
Hmm.
don't feel all over the place. I feel like I can keep going.
Hmm. You can push
It's,
through hardship easier because there's a deeper reason behind what you're doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think of like being someone with purpose and it pushes you through.
Hmm.
And you can push through some pretty terrible, painful,
Hmm.
traumatic, life-changing things when you have a purpose. But even when
Hmm.
you don't have a purpose per se, if your feelings are attached to the outcome and you're driven by them, you can
Hmm.
still push even without a purpose. And sometimes you do lose your purpose.
Hmm.
I think back to 2 years ago where I had started to question myself. I started to get a little philosophical with myself. And I'm like, "Oh, man, with a purpose, like I can do this thing beyond all reason, right? Because I have a something I want to do." But then I thought to myself, well, that's not enough. But again, to your point, Sawyer, like when once your feelings are involved and you're emotionally invested in something and it's starting to click, and you have to dig for that. It doesn't just come naturally.
Hmm.
But when it hits, ride that wave for as long as you can because
Hmm.
that's where the magic happens. At least that's how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you have to get stuck at certain points to figure out why it matters to you to keep going, right? Like if you decided at age 12 you were going to be a doctor and whatever, and that was really important to you at one point. At some point it's gonna be a really different picture, or really reality of what you're having to deal with to become that doctor. And you better hope that your dream grew and turned into something even more than like, I want to help people or whatever. I mean, I think that's still going to be there in some way, but there's probably going to be more nuance as you grow, right? There's going to be more like, well, I want to help people with this particular type of cancer or whatever. And so I think as we grow in any kind of journey, you have to also develop your purpose and your kind of mission statement, because if you don't, it's going to get outdated and you're going to be like, why am I still going through all this suffering for no benefit, or it doesn't feel that tangible anymore? It was so based on so long ago version of me. So I think what you're describing is like you got a little bit stuck in like you kind of had this mission statement for a long time, and then you kind of lost the plot for a minute because you hadn't
Correct.
kind of checked in with yourself. And so you're like, wait, why am I doing all this hard stuff? And you can kind of look around and be like, maybe I should just take it easy on myself. And, granted, if you change, if you have a major life event and you all of a sudden like fitness and health are not your primary concerns anymore or something, that's, nobody can tell you you're wrong. But I think that there's going to be if you really closely identify with somebody who wants to be an athlete and wants to have like great athletic and physical fitness success, you're probably going to need to become someone who really identifies with a certain kind of mission statement and image that you're trying to cultivate. And it's going to be challenged like quite frequently. So you're going to need to keep updating it and keep like reinforcing it. And it's going to need to stand the test of time, in other words, you know? And so we need those moments of reflection. One analogy we could use for that is like the cycles of nature, right? It's like summer, fall, winter, spring. Like you're going to have those kind of things when it comes to ideas or I guess, you know, your purpose or your purposes as a human, and they're going to undergo kind of death and and like rebirth, and like you're going to have to like rediscover what it is that means it means something to you. And then if it doesn't, if it just stays in winter for long enough, you'll probably move on to something else because it just doesn't mean anything to you anymore. But yeah, I don't know. I think we're talking very philosophically, but maybe we can bring it to like a
Yeah.
real example of some
Yeah.
clients. Like, what do they deal with most often, and how do we help them in those situations?
Yeah, absolutely. That's honestly a good place to pivot right here. Like thinking about individual clients and what they come here for. And boy, where do we even begin? There's just so many different examples.
Hmm.
I think once someone gets to where they want to be on paper and you acknowledge that, whether it's, we'll use the easiest low hanging fruit here. They want to get leaner and more conditioned, and then they see what
Hmm.
their shape looks like and they see how lean they are. And they're like, okay, coach said I got here.
Hmm.
What now?
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they're not particularly happy. They're also, at that point in time, it's uncertain what the path is to move forward and use that as a jumping off point. They have to accept what they were able to get.
Hmm.
And I think the safest place to land with your client or with yourself is being in a place where you can acknowledge the skills that you now possess and the tools that you have been able to gather and
Hmm.
wield, and the routine and the process that got you there is now familiar, and you
Hmm.
are mentally and physically adaptable, and you can improve upon that outcome for the future because you are now physically and mentally adaptable
Hmm.
to the whole routine and process that got you the outcome. But again, I feel like that's where you begin. And you also find a way to receive praise, give yourself praise,
Hmm.
receive validation, ask for validation,
Hmm.
and celebrate where you actually are, as opposed to immediately moving the goalpost
Hmm.
and saying, well, now what? Or finding a way to criticize and nitpick yourself. Like, I
Hmm.
understand the value in all that, right?
Hmm.
Be a work in progress, look
Hmm.
ahead. But I feel like it's really important to acknowledge what you've accomplished, be where you're
Hmm.
at, and honestly not attach too much of your identity to that outcome, because that's just a surefire recipe for disaster, and
Hmm.
disappointment usually ensues. And if you could detach yourself from the outcome as far as your identity and who you are, you're able to work through whatever growth you want to experience from that jumping off point in the future. And the next time go around, and the next time that rolls around, when you try to do this again, you may or may not be as good at it,
Hmm.
even though in theory you should be better at the process. In
Hmm.
actuality, your mood can be affected by whatever's going on. There could be a life event. You might not have the time for it, or want to prioritize it and not be willing to accept it yet. All kinds of reasons. But to
Hmm.
me, that is, again, like a good problem to have, but
Hmm.
nevertheless a problem. And so I'll put
Yeah.
it on you and ask you, like, what do you do when you reach that point with your client? In my opinion, it's the best case scenario, but it's one
Hmm.
of those things where, as a coach, or even for yourself, where you start to look ahead and you say, okay, well, how do I get this person to pivot
Hmm.
and get more out of them for the future, and find a way for them to be like, I want this and this is why.
Yeah. I'm always trying to evoke that from people, like what's next for them. But I always start with giving lots of praise for the things they've done well, and then also looking forward at what they could do again if they ever wanted to. Because I think for that specific instance, like a client who's successfully completed a cut, you can say, "Hey, great job, you did the cut," but also you now have that knowledge for how to do that in the future. And so, maybe, yeah, there's going to be different obstacles in the future, but you kind of know more or less how to do this for you that works, and you can build from there. So what you do is you can kind of give them I think I probe with like different scenarios. I'll give them like, well, what do you think would be fun to do? Do you think it'd be cool to build muscle and lean into that process a little bit more? I think a lot of people at that stage realize that they want to build more muscle because they don't have as much as they thought they did underneath the fat. So that's a common thing that people could be like, yeah, you know what, that would be kind of fun. And and then we can push it more in that direction. And then, and then they can rely on the knowledge that they've gained so far to say, well, if I ever gain a little bit too much and I want to go back, and which will probably happen with bulking, it's never going to be 100% lean bulking. Once they get to the point of like, okay, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this body fat percentage, I'm going to go back down. They know how to do that now. So that's cool. It's like you can keep building on your knowledge base. And once you know how to do more things in fitness, doing different things feels less scary. And so yeah, when you feel less scared, you're not afraid to dream bigger, right? And so I think a lot of what excites us is kind of being on the edge of what we think is possible, right? Like I think David Bowie had a really cool quote where he said like, make music where your like tippy toes are like you can touch the bottom of the water, or the surface that you're in the water, but you're kind of dabbling with the idea of going into the deeper water, right? And so I think that's what really excites us as human beings, and I think what informed like this kind of conquest of the entire globe. Like there's no landmass that we haven't explored, because I think our natural curiosity just kind of brings us there. And so in that same way with fitness or with self-actualization in general, we're always trying to look for like, well, what's the way that I could grow or be a little bit, push my limits on something. And so I think we always have to be keyed into like what feels like a limit, first of all. Like, do I feel like, oh, I can't get bigger than this, or I can't get leaner than that, or I can't compete with these people, or anything that feels like a harsh barrier. The more confidence you gain, the more likely you're going to be able to take on that and say, you know what, I think I can actually. I'm going to challenge that old belief and move in that direction. So I think you just have to palpate as a coach or as an individual. You have to palpate and see what are the sore spots. Like what are the things that usually it has something to do with how they grew up and formative years, and like what they really thought they could never achieve, right? Growing up a chubby kid, most of those kids want to get really lean, right? Growing up a skinny kid like I did, I want to get really big. And I have not been able to shake that feeling of like, I want to get big. You know what I mean? And so I think when we have that kind of a North Star, or like, we have that aspiration, and then we think we have achieved some level of success, but also we're not sure if we can take it farther. That's usually where the inspiration lies, is like, if you think that you can't do it, you have to test that water. You have to try it, and you have to try a bunch of different ways to do it. Gets harder the farther you go. Usually it's like learning to play an instrument is, learning how to play chords is a lot easier than learning how to play whole pieces and things like that. But it gets more rewarding as you go too, because you're more inspiring to other people. You come so far, you document your journey. So there's so many layers to it. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about finding where your limited mindset and biggest desires to overcome that mindset, or prove to yourself or prove to others that you can do things in that direction, really lie. Because there's nothing more exciting than breaking through something that you thought was a limit for you at one point, and then you were able to get past it, and you're like, wow, so proud of myself for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And sometimes it's important to consider, well, maybe aside from the goal not looking like what you expected it to look like, sometimes it helps to just do a complete 180 and try something different, honestly.
Yeah,
Whatever.
no, that's true. That's true.
Lift it differently, set a different goal that's not body composition related, for example. Work on something else that you weren't working on. Change the focus from, say, training to nutrition, for example, or make the goal more lifestyle and mindset related, right? Because you can't do it all at once, but you can focus on plugging in the holes along the way, because no one is perfect and you can't do it all at once. You can see the writing on the wall and know everything you need to work on, but you can't work on everything at once. So sometimes, even when the goal is the same and you know exactly what you want and you know how much time it's going to take, and you're still feeling like, well, can I do this? Is this something that I feel compelled to do? Rather than just getting caught up in the big everything, you can get a little more granular with it and focus on looking back and reflecting and thinking about what you haven't had a chance to work on yet, and work on that, whatever it is. It's the same thing we do when we have our member challenges. Every month as a team, we have a challenge. Get in 10,000 steps, eat vegetables 3 times a day, whatever it is. There's a different challenge every month. And ideally, all 12 of those things are things that you would do routinely all year long.
Mhm.
But we do these things as a little bit of an audit and a little bit of a cleanup. So if you think about these 12 goals that you have, and we attack one goal per month, right?
Mhm.
And we do the challenge together as a team, which we do over here at Vegan Proteins, right? And if you're not a member, consider joining and you can do one of these challenges with us and become a Muscles by Brussels member or inquire about coaching. Just hit the contact button on Vegan Proteins and we can have a conversation about that. My point is, I feel like over time, if you continue to work on one goal at a time out of those 12 goals, 3 to 5 years later, you should be able to routinely do 80 to even 100% of those things year
Yeah.
round.
Well, that's a really good point you bring up, is that I, personally, and maybe people relate to this, have always felt like a little bit stubborn. When somebody tells me that I need to do something, like I hated school, not because school was all terrible all the time, but because I had to be there, you know? So there's this kind of rebellious part of me, and I think of a lot of people, that when you don't feel like you get a choice in the matter, or you feel like people are telling you have to work out, you have to do this, you have to do that, there's a part of you that just wants to be like, no, I don't have to do it that way. And a big part of my fitness journey was defined by like figuring out how to do things my way. And so now I'm figuring out, but it's really good to get input from other people and do some stuff you don't like sometimes, because then you work on stuff you suck at. And it's really good to work on stuff you suck at, because otherwise you have these big glaring holes in. And for me, it's manifested physically in like physique. Like I don't have the most well balanced physique because I have lifts I like, and muscles I like to train, and muscles I don't like to train, and muscles I haven't developed as much. And while that is a punch in the gut of like, man, I should have been working on that shit this whole time, it's also very motivating, because it's like, okay, I really need to listen to some other people, and I really need to learn about some other things, because I've been running this kind of software for a long time that was like my own design, my own comfort zone. But if I really, really want to level up, I need to be open to feedback, and I need to look at things from other people's perspectives, and I need to see what's worked for other people, because it's not all about me. If I want to become the best version of me, I have to take lessons from other people and things that they have learned to enjoy and excel at, and incorporate that into my psyche and my physique, quite frankly. So that's what's got me fired up, actually, is doing stuff I suck at, trying to do more running, more cardio, more walking, trying to just get better at lifts that I don't really like and historically have not really liked. Stuff like that is just seeming more exciting than ever. Whereas, if you asked me 10 years ago, I'd be like, I don't want to do any of that stuff. Get out of my face. So now I'm more excited about the fact that there's stuff to learn, and stuff I haven't really tapped into, at this point in my journey. And I feel like again, like a new spring in my fitness journey. I feel like I really have hit something where there was a winter for a long time before it, and I was like, this is frustrating. I don't know if I care about fitness anymore. I was still doing it, but I just wasn't feeling inspired by it. And then I hit this point where I was like, I think I actually have a lot more potential than I realize if I just open myself up to the fact that I don't know everything, and that I need to learn from other people, and that there's a lot more to explore that I haven't done. And that reminder was enough to just light the fire up under me, and I'm very excited now. So I think, yeah, I keep going back to my story because I'm in my feels about it, but I think at the end of the day, you need to follow your heart. You need to follow your emotions, because as much as we like to think we are logical creatures, and that's what, brings about the best change and everything, and we have some capacity for that, at the end of the day, you can't really change what where your heart is. Heart wants what it wants, and you got to follow that thing. Even if you're not sure where it's headed, I think you got to go test those waters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Do you feel I feel like we're kind of reached the end of this conversation far, but I don't know where your wheels are if they're still spinning.
Yeah, no, I think I've talked about kind of what I want to talk about. I hope it's relatable to people.
Yeah.
I know we didn't give a lot of like solid, rock
Mm,
solid examples,
mm.
but I think this kind of episode would be good for somebody who is just feeling a little bit lost in the sauce. They're a little bit caught up in their feelings, and they're not sure which to follow. Sometimes it feels like your heart and your head are at odds. They're a little bit at war. What's that, like Native American proverb? There's two wolves inside of everyone, kind of thing. Um, and I guess my advice for those people is keep trying new things, keep reflecting, and trying to understand where these feelings are coming from. But then at the end of the day, if you still can't make up your mind, just pick a direction, and it'll become clear soon enough that either you really wanted that direction all along, or you actually want to go the other way because that's what you're excited about. Another way of saying that is like, give somebody, if you give somebody the option of, hey, let's do A or B thing, activity, and that person that you gave the option to, and you're like, I'm so indifferent, I could do either one, right? You're so convinced that you don't care. You give the option to some other person, A or B, and they pick B, and you're like, snap, I think I actually wanted A. Like once there's a decision that's been made, it's a lot easier to reflect upon what you actually wanted because the feelings will come immediately. But if you're in that hypothetical space too long, you're like, nah, I don't really care. It's the same to me, right? And I think in a lot of cases, we're just kind of a little bit lost in the sauce there. We need to just make a decision and run with it for us to
Totally.
learn what's important.
I know this wasn't, like you said, the most concrete conversation with very specific examples, but I'm hoping that
Hmm.
you, as a listener, got to enjoy being a fly on the wall for this one because I feel like this is a pretty important topic. And to me, this is a lot of the mindset stuff where
Hmm.
no kind of programming is going to get you the outcome you're looking for if you don't put this work in.
Hmm.
Every single one of us will hit this wall again at some point if you're not already there right now.
Hmm.
Ask for support, use
Hmm.
people as a sounding board, especially professionals, because no one goes through it alone. You might think that you do, but you don't. And I've seen some people crave that control and close themselves off to feedback and other people's perspective or just like straight up guidance to
Hmm.
get them out of their own way. And to me, it's a limiting way to get
Yeah.
the outcome you're looking for, and there could arguably be a better way to get there.
Yeah, it's an ego trap. You think, I don't want to humble myself to the opinions of others because I know so much, and whatever. And even though I wasn't that like conscious of that, that was at play. So it's like, oh, I need to get past my, a fear of being seen as not that good at things and just put myself to work on things that I suck at and like let people give me feedback on that. But yeah, I think it's funny whenever we have an episode, I feel like you and I are both very much dreamers. And so we have a hard time staying like concrete with the examples, but hopefully the people who need this message and need it in more of a general, apply their own life situation to it type of context will get a lot out of this. I really do. I hope that. So you guys can know that for the future. Anytime it's me and Giacomo on a podcast, it's probably going to meander quite a bit. It's probably going to be pretty touchy feely, but
Oh
it's
no, no, I'm gonna go punch something into the good old school AI and put it right in front of me like a script, and I'm gonna stay on it line by line, and I'm just gonna talk about. We're gonna hit all the points. We're gonna do it like 2025. This is the teleprompter style kind of
so
record. No, no. When you come here, you get a real conversation, and we don't really know where it's gonna go. And this is usually the flow with you and I.
yeah,
But hopefully,
yeah,
you're enjoying this
I-
if you're out there listening
yeah,
or watching.
yeah, definitely.
Anyways, why don't you take us home, Sawyer?
All right. Thank you guys for listening to Muscles by Brussels Radio. Not even sure what episode this is at this point, but we're all grateful for you guys tuning in. And check us out on social media at Vegan Proteins, at Muscles by Brussels. Check us out online at veganproteins.com and apply for coaching if you want. That sounds like something that's going to be helpful to you in your journey at this stage. And just thanks for being here, guys. I'm Coach Sawyer,
And I'm Giacomo.
and we'll see you guys next time.
Later.